It was during Truth or Dare at the alumni reunion, and the former campus queen was wasted. Someone asked her the most despicable thing she'd ever done. She pointed across the booth at me, giggling hysterically. I used his phone to delete his poor little girlfriend's desperate plea for help while he was in the shower. And then I texted back, "Drop dead. You guys wouldn't believe it, that pauper waited outside in the rain all night." It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Laughter erupted through the private room. Except for the man seated at the head of the table. The crystal wine glass in his hand shattered with a sickening crunch. Blood mixed with red wine streamed down his fingers. He stared at me, his eyes bloodshot, like he was seconds from murder. I calmly slid a napkin toward him. "Mr. Rhys, you should wipe up. It's soiled." Some things, once stained, can never be washed clean. The Carlisle Club, Manhattan's most exclusive private membership space, was entirely booked for the evening. The word was a newly minted venture capital titan, worth 9 figures, had returned from overseas and wanted to flaunt his success to his old college crowd. When the manager handed me the gold embossed wine list, his eyes held a fleeting, unreadable pity. "Scout," Mr. Davies said, his voice low. "It's the V888 suite tonight. If you don't want to go, I can assign someone else." I adjusted my ill-fitting server uniform, offering him a faint smile. "It's fine, Mr. Davies. That's our highest spending suite. The corkage fees alone will net me a decent bonus. I need the cash, you know." He sighed, patted my shoulder, and walked away. I pushed open the door to the V888 suite, the heat wave hitting me instantly, thick with the scent of expensive perfume, Cuban cigars, and something else, the dizzying, nauseating smell of burning money. In the center of the plush leather sofa sat the man I hadn't seen in 7 years. He had changed completely. Gone was the memory of the fiercely proud, intensely stubborn boy in a faded hoodie and threadbare jeans. In his place sat a polished, cold-eyed business mogul, exuding the effortless authority of a true power player. He was leaning back, listening to someone next to him, a detached, almost bored smirk playing on his lips. And nestled against him was the woman who had stolen him from me all those years ago. Genevieve Jen Sinclair. Jen was draped in a custom white Chanel dress, her neck flashing with a diamond necklace that caught the ambient light like a beacon. She swirled the contents of her wine glass, radiating the smug arrogance of a proud swan. "Oh, Holden's back in the States mainly for me, of course. He's shifting his company headquarters because, well, we're finally getting engaged." A chorus of sycophantic praise immediately erupted. The campus beauty and the brain, a match made in heaven. "Holden, you're on the cover of Forbes now. Jen, you lucked out. It's the ultimate turnaround story. Unlike some people who traded up for cash and bailed. Bet they're regretting that decision now, huh?" The intentional barb hung in the air, and for a silent second, every eye in the room pivoted to me, where I stood in the corner, expertly uncorking a bottle. I felt nothing. Like a numb marionette, I sliced the foil with a corkscrew, twisted the worm, and slowly pulled the stopper. Bordeaux left bank. Optimal pour after 20 minutes of decanting. I poured the breathing wine into the massive crystal goblet in front of Holden Rhys, my movements flawless, professional. Holden finally raised his head. His stare was a devastating cocktail. Contempt, disgust, raw hatred, and a subtle flicker of something deeper, an arrogant indifference. He didn't reach for the glass, allowing me to hold it suspended in the air. My wrist, fatigued from balancing the heavy serving tray, gave a tiny, involuntary tremor. "Scout Davis." He finally spoke, his voice a low, gravelly baritone. "I heard you dropped out of NYU before graduation. What happened? Did your trust fund boyfriend get bored and toss you out? Now you're scraping by, serving drinks in places like this." The room fell silent, the audience waiting for the spectacle. Jen theatrically covered her mouth, feigning shock as she looked at me. "Oh my God, it is Scout. How are you dressed like that? Honey, if you're really hard up, just tell me. Even though you threw Holden over for money, we're still old classmates. I'd be happy to arrange something for you, maybe a janitorial position at my father's firm." She deliberately lingered on the phrase, "threw Holden over for money." The whispers of judgment started, a fine biting spray. Serves her right. Holden was so devoted back then. That's karma. Look at the CEO, he is now, billions. And her? Waiting tables. The tides turn, you know? 30 years down the road. I listened to the stinging comments with a blank expression, as if they were discussing a stranger. 7 years. I had built a fortress around my heart. I'd worked in the darkest corners of this city, washing dishes in scorching kitchens, moving inventory in freezing cold storage, being splashed with drinks by drunk patrons, and being screamed at by landlords calling me a beggar. Dignity. That broken thing had been pulverized into dust on that rainy night, 7 years ago. "Mr. Rhys, your wine," I repeated, my voice steady. Holden fixed his gaze on my eyes, clearly searching for a hint of remorse, shame, or even tears. He was disappointed. My eyes contained nothing but endless fatigue and a chilling, vacant numbness. My indifference seemed to infuriate him. He suddenly raised his hand and slammed it down, violently knocking the wine glass out of my grasp. This vintage is too common, Holden said, pulling a crisp linen napkin from his pocket to wipe his hand. His eyes were arctic. Get me something else. A bottle with some real age. Something like that night, 7 years ago. He was humiliating me. 7 years ago, he was still a penniless college student who'd saved up for 3 months to buy a single bottle of cheap, corner store red wine for my birthday. We drank it straight from the bottle on the cold grass of the campus quad, our faces flushed, promising to stay together forever. Now he was using that same memory to remind me of the price of betrayal. Jen giggled, playing along. Oh, Holden, don't be so hard on her. That wine costs a fortune. She couldn't pay for the broken glass if she sold everything she owns. Just apologize to Mr. Rhys, Scout, wipe up the mess and we'll let it go. I knelt, retrieved a cloth, and began to carefully blot the scarlet stain from the expensive Persian rug. A tiny shard of crystal glass embedded itself in my fingertip, a sharp, familiar stab of pain. I didn't flinch. I merely calculated in my head. That's my commission gone. Plus the cost of the glass. Tonight's work, maybe half a month's wages, is now a loss. This was my life now. No romance, no poetry, only the brutal arithmetic of bills I couldn't pay and debts I couldn't outrun. As for love, that was a luxury only the rich could afford. My apologies, Mr. Rhys. I finished cleaning the last trace of wine, stood up, and maintained my humble, subservient posture. I will inform the manager to send up the finest bottle we have. Holden looked at the small bead of blood welling up on my finger. His pupil constricted momentarily, but the mask of icy indifference returned instantly. Get out. I didn't get out. Because Mr. Davies told me the client in V888 had specifically requested my service for the duration of the night. If I left, I'd lose the mandatory $2,000 tip and potentially have my base pay docked. I desperately needed the money. My mother's dialysis next month hadn't been covered yet, and the landlord was already texting about next quarter's rent. So, I went to the restroom to quickly bandage the cut, and then I returned to that suffocating, velvet-lined suite. When I pushed the door open again, the atmosphere had shifted. 3 rounds of drinks in, the impeccably tailored elite had started to drop their pretenses, revealing the ugly core of humanity beneath. They were playing truth or dare. It was a trite, yet endlessly effective game, especially fueled by alcohol, the perfect tool to rip the veneer off human decency. The marble table was littered with empty bottles. Louis XIII, Remy Martin, Ace of Spades. The combined cost of those bottles was enough for me to buy a closet-sized studio apartment in the outer boroughs. Jen was clearly drunk. Her cheeks were flushed, and she was practically draped over Holden, her eyes hazy, almost feverish with triumph. She was the star of the night, the biggest winner. The prospect of marrying Holden and becoming the envied Mrs. Rhys had made her reckless, almost giddy with hubris. All right. Next round. The class president, an awkward man named Sam, slurred his words. Who gets it this time? The empty magnum bottle spun quickly across the slick marble table, making a grating, unpleasant sound. Everyone held their breath, their eyes glued to the bottle's neck. Slowly it stopped. The bottle pointed directly at Jen. Ooh, jackpot for the campus queen. Truth or dare? Jen let out a throaty laugh, waving a dismissive hand. Truth. This princess has nothing to hide. Sam rubbed his hands together with a malicious grin. His eyes bouncing between me and General, he was clearly looking to stir up trouble. Fine, let's go with a juicy one. Jen, what is the most despicable, most heartless thing you've ever done in your entire life? The question dropped into the room like a stone. They were all adults, who didn't have a few dirty secrets. But this was a game, and the point was the shock value. Holden, who had been resting his eyes, merely lifted an eyelid at the question, offering no objection. In his mind, Jen was merely spoiled and occasionally petty, but certainly not capable of true malice. Jen let out a small burp, her gaze suddenly slicing through the crowd to land on me, where I was standing in the corner pouring water for a guest. A vile, triumphant smile curled her lips. The alcohol had dulled her judgment and amplified the jealousy and spite buried deep in her heart. The most despicable thing, you ask? Jen stumbled to her feet, her finger aimed directly at me. It was 7 years ago, the night of that huge thunderstorm. I went to Holden's shabby little rental. At the mention of 7 years ago, my hand convulsed, and the hot water in the carafe nearly sloshed over the rim. Holden's body, too, stiffened almost imperceptibly. Jen burst into hysterical laughter, as if recounting the most hilarious anecdote. Holden was in the shower. His cheap phone was on the table. And guess what? This pauper scout texts him. And guess what she said? Ha. She wrote, Holden, please save my dad. I beg you. I only need 50,000. I'll be your servant forever. Tisk tsk. So pathetic, so utterly desperate. I thought, Holden is so brilliant, he can't be saddled with this kind of trash. He belongs with me, in the big leagues, not dragged down into the mud by some bottom feeder. So, she paused for dramatic effect, her eyes gleaming with a manic spark. I did Holden a favor. I deleted her frantic text, and then I texted back from his phone. Just 2 words. Drop dead. Ha 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 ha. You should have seen it. The pauper actually waited outside in the rain all night. I watched her from the window, soaked like a drowned rat, watching her sink to her knees in despair. It was the best laugh I've ever had. Seriously, didn't I do a great thing? If I hadn't done that, how could Holden have shed that anchor? How could he have become the man he is today? Holden, you should be thanking me. Jen's voice was cut off by the sharp sound of shattering glass. Holden had crushed his wine glass with his bare hand. The fragments were deeply embedded in his palm. Blood mixed with red wine, dripping onto the pristine white tablecloth, a horrifying tableau. But he seemed completely oblivious to the pain. He was staring intensely at Jen, his normally cold eyes now streaked with crimson veins. What did you say? Jen, still basking in her own cruelty, hadn't registered the danger. I said I helped you get rid of that poor. Shut up. Holden violently overturned the mahogany coffee table in front of him. The deafening crash made Jen scream, the shock sobering her instantly. She looked up in terror at the man towering over her, who looked like an enraged lion. Oh, Holden, what is it? I was just kidding. Kidding. Holden stumbled to his feet, closing the distance between them. Are you saying that 7 years ago, she didn't run off with Dean Kincaid, the rich guy? She didn't text me saying she was leaving because I was poor. Are you saying she was in a hospital? She was begging me for help. His voice grew louder, culminating in a raw, animalistic roar. Jen was so terrified by his presence that she sank back onto the sofa. Holden didn't even spare her another glance. He spun around, his attention locked on me in the corner. Scout. He choked out my name, a sound like a sob tearing from his throat. Is she telling the truth? That night, were you waiting for me? The entire room was paralyzed, everyone too terrified to even breathe. I set the water carafe down. I looked at the truth that had taken 7 years to surface, and my heart felt frighteningly empty. Too late. It was truly, devastatingly too late. I pulled a tissue from my uniform pocket, walked over, and held it out to him. Mr. Rhys, wipe your hand. It's bleeding everywhere. It's dirty. Holden ignored the tissue. He lunged and grabbed my wrist. Answer me, Scout. Tell me this isn't real. I looked into his bloodshot eyes and smiled gently. And what if it is? Holden Rhys. And what if it is? Holden Rhys. The name felt strange on my tongue after all these years. He froze, his grip on my wrist tightening so hard I could feel my pulse throbbing against his palm. What if it is? He echoed, his voice barely a whisper, the previous rage dissolving into a desperate, hollow confusion. If it's true then everything I've done, everything I've hated you for, it was all a lie. I gently peeled his bloody fingers off my wrist one by one. It doesn't matter anymore, Holden, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. The statute of limitations on that pain expired a long time ago. I turned to the stunned room, picking up the tray of dirty glasses. If there's nothing else, I'll clear these. Scout. Holden roared, grabbing my arm again, this time with a frantic urgency. He ignored the blood smearing onto my cheap polyester uniform. You don't get to do that. You don't get to just walk away and wipe tables like we're strangers. Tell me what happened that night. Genevieve, now fully sober and trembling, tried to intervene. Holden, baby, please, you're scaring me. It was just a stupid game. She's just a waitress now. Why does it matter? Holden didn't even look at her. Get out. What? Everyone. Get out. Now. The command was absolute. The sycophants scrambled, grabbing their coats and purses, eager to escape the suffocating tension. Genevieve hesitated, looking between Holden and me, her face pale. Holden, you can't be serious. We're celebrating our engagement. There is no engagement, Holden said, his voice flat and deadly. If I find out you're still in this room in 10 seconds, I will destroy your father's company before sunrise. Genevieve gasped, a sound of pure horror, and fled the room, her heels clacking frantically against the marble floor. Suddenly, the V888 suite was quiet. Just the hum of the air conditioning and the heavy, ragged breathing of the man standing before me. Talk, he commanded, though the arrogance was gone, replaced by a plea. I sighed, setting the tray down. I looked at the blood on his hand. You should really wrap that. You'll get an infection. I don't care about my hand. He slammed his fist against the wall, leaving a red smear. I care about the last 7 years. I spent every single day hating you. I built this empire out of spite, just to show you what you missed. And now you tell me I left you in the rain. You didn't leave me, I corrected softly. You just didn't answer. I walked over to the sideboard, found a first aid kit the hotel kept stocked, and sat on the sofa. I patted the spot next to me. Seat. He obeyed, collapsing onto the leather like his strings had been cut. I took his hand, cleaning the wound with disinfectant. He flinched but didn't pull away. My father had a stroke that night, I said, focusing on picking out the glass shards with tweezers. It was a massive hemorrhage. The doctors said they could operate, but we needed $50,000 up front. Insurance wouldn't cover it because it was a pre-existing condition, hypertension. Holden's breath hitched. I called everyone. Relatives, friends. Dean Kincaid. I paused. Dean offered me the money, but the condition was, well, Dean has always been Dean. He wanted me to go to the Caribbean with him for a week. Holden's hand trembled in mine. I refused him. I thought Holden is smart. He'll find a way. We can take out a loan, or maybe his coding project's sold. So I texted you. I begged you. I wrapped the gauze around his palm. When I got the reply, drop dead. I thought I deserved it. I thought maybe I was asking too much. So I went to your apartment. I stood in the rain for 6 hours. I watched your light go out. I was asleep, Holden whispered, tears finally spilling over, mixing with the blood on his shirt. I fell asleep waiting for you to come over for your birthday. I had the cheap wine. I had a ring, Scout. A toy ring from a Cracker Jack box, but I was going to promise you a real one. I know, I said. I saw the ring box in the trash the next day, when I came back to beg one last time. But by then you were gone. And Jen was there. She told me you left with Dean, Holden choked out. She showed me a picture of you getting into his car. I did get into his car, I said simply. To go to the hospital. Dean drove me because the ambulance was taking too long. But by the time we got there, my dad was gone. Holden slid off the sofa onto his knees, burying his face in my lap. The great billionaire, sobbing like a child. I killed him, he wept. I killed your father. No, I said, stroking his hair, a habit I hadn't broken in 7 years. A stroke killed him. Poverty killed him. Bad timing killed him. You were just a boy who didn't check his phone. Holden didn't let me leave that night. He didn't try to touch me inappropriately. He just sat on the floor of the suite, holding my hand as if I would evaporate if he let go. He asked me everything. Where I lived, a basement in Queens. What I did, 3 jobs. Why I dropped out, couldn't afford tuition after the funeral costs and debts my dad left behind. Every answer was a lash of the whip, flaying him alive. I have money now, he said around 4 a.m., his voice hoarse. Scout, I have so much money. I can fix this. I can buy you a house. I can pay off your debts. We can start over. I pulled my hand away gently. Holden, you can't buy back 7 years. I can try. He looked at me with frantic desperation. Why are you so calm? Why aren't you screaming at me? Hitting me? Because I'm tired, Holden. I've been tired for a very long time. Anger takes energy. Hate takes energy. I used all mine up just surviving. I stood up and smoothed my uniform. My shift ended 5 hours ago. I need to go home. My mom needs her meds. I'll drive you. No. Scout. Goodbye, Holden. I walked out of the Carlisle Club into the cold Manhattan dawn. I didn't look back. But the next day, my life turned upside down. I arrived at the restaurant to find the manager, Mr. Davies, waiting for me with a strange expression. You're fired, Scout. My heart stopped. What? Why? I didn't do anything. You're fired because I've just sold the restaurant, Davies said, handing me an envelope. To Rhys Capital. And the new owner has issued a directive. Scout Davis is prohibited from working in the service industry in the state of New York. I stared at him. He blacklisted me. No, Davies said gently. He's forcing your hand. He pointed to a black limousine parked at the curb. The window rolled down. Holden sat there, wearing fresh clothes but looking just as wrecked as the night before. Get in, he said. You got me fired? I marched up to the car. Are you insane? I need this job. You need a job? Fine. I'm hiring you. He held out a contract. Personal assistant to the CEO. Starting salary is $200,000 a year. Plus benefits. Plus a signing bonus of $50,000. $50,000. The exact amount that would have saved my father. I looked at the paper, then at him. This is cruel, Holden. This is penance, he said. Get in the car, Scout. Or go find another waitressing gig. Oh wait, you can't. I bought the coffee shop you work at too. And the laundromat. I trembled with rage. You arrogant, controlling. Yes, he agreed. I am. I'm a monster. But I'm a monster who's not going to let you scrub toilets anymore. Get in. I got in. Not because I forgave him, but because my mother's dialysis bill was sitting on my kitchen counter, and pride doesn't pay for kidneys. Working for Holden Rhys was a nightmare of a different kind. He didn't want a personal assistant. He wanted a ghost of his past to haunt him. He moved me into a luxury apartment next to his penthouse. He cleared my debts anonymously, though we both knew it was him. He paid for the best doctors for my mother. But in the office, he was terrifying. He dismantled Genevieve's father's company with the precision of a surgeon. Within a month, Sinclair Enterprises was facing bankruptcy, auditing scandals, and a hostile takeover. Genevieve came to the office once, screaming, looking disheveled. "You can't do this. My father had nothing to do with it." Holden didn't even look up from his desk. "He raised you. That was his crime." When security dragged her out, she saw me sitting at the desk outside his office. "You," she screeched. "You witch. You planned this. You waited 7 years to destroy me." I looked at her, typing a memo. "I didn't plan anything, General. I was just trying to pay my rent. You destroyed yourself when you picked up that phone." But the revenge didn't bring Holden peace. If anything, he grew darker. He stopped sleeping. He worked 18-hour days. And he watched me. Every time I brought him coffee, I caught him staring at my hands, at the scars from burns and cuts accumulated over years of manual labor. One night, late, during a thunderstorm, the power in the building flickered. I was packing up to leave when Holden burst out of his office. He looked panicked. "Scout. I'm here, Holden. Just the storm." He walked over and grabbed my shoulders. "Are you leaving? It's 10 p.m. I'm going home." "Stay. Holden. Please. Just stay. I can't be alone with the rain." I looked at his face, pale and sweaty. The trauma of that night hadn't just broken me, it had twisted him too. He had spent 7 years believing the love of his life had sold him out for cash because he wasn't good enough. That kind of insecurity eats a soul. "Okay," I said. "I'll stay." We sat on the couch in his office, watching the lightning strike the skyscrapers. "I hate myself," he whispered into the dark. "Every time I look at you, I see you standing outside my window. I see you crying. And I see myself sleeping, dreaming of a future I was too stupid to protect. We were kids, Holden. I should have known you better. I should have known you wouldn't betray me. Why didn't I trust you? Because it's easier to believe someone is evil than to believe life is just cruel," I said. He turned to me, his hand cupping my cheek. "Can you ever love me again?" I looked into his eyes, the eyes of the boy I adored and the man who terrified me. "I don't know," I said honestly. "The girl who loved you died that night, Holden. I'm what's left. And I'm not sure what I'm capable of anymore." He leaned his forehead against mine. "Then I'll wait. I'll wait 7 years. Or 70. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to resurrect her." It took 3 years. 3 years of him attending every one of my mother's dialysis appointments. 3 years of him learning to cook, because he found out I had developed a stomach ulcer from eating cheap ramen. 3 years of him never pushing, never demanding, just being there. I went back to school. I finished my degree. I started painting again. A hobby I had abandoned when survival became my only art form. One afternoon, I was at a gallery opening for my first small exhibition. Holden was there, standing in the back looking nervous. He was holding a bottle of wine. Not expensive wine. A cheap, corner store red. He walked up to me when the crowd thinned. "Happy birthday, Scout." I looked at the bottle. "You kept the receipt this time?" He smiled, a genuine boyish smile that reached his eyes, the first time I'd seen it in a decade. "I didn't buy it," he said. "I found the bodega we used to go to. They still stock the same terrible vintage." He pulled a small box from his pocket. It wasn't Cartier or Tiffany. It was a cardboard Cracker Jack box. My throat tightened. "I'm not asking for marriage," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm asking for a chance. A real one. No dates. No guilt. No past. Just dinner. With cheap wine." I looked around the gallery. At my paintings, dark, stormy scenes that slowly transitioned into lighter, softer sunrises. I looked at the man who had burned the world down to find me in the ashes. The stain on the tablecloth that night at the Carlisle Club. Maybe it couldn't be washed out. But maybe you could buy a new tablecloth. I took the box. Inside was a ring made of twisted wire and a plastic gem. And underneath it, a folded piece of paper. I opened it. It was a printout of a text message record from the phone company, dated 10 years ago. Message recovered. To Holden. From Scout. Content. "Holden, please save my dad. I beg you. I only need 50,000. I'll be your servant forever." And below it, a new reply, timestamped today. To Scout. From Holden. Content. "I'm here. I'm listening. And you don't have to be my servant. Just be my love." I looked up at him through blurry eyes. "The wine needs to breathe for 20 minutes, I said. Holden laughed, a sound of pure relief. "I can wait. I'm good at waiting now." We walked out of the gallery, leaving the billionaire CEO and the tragic waitress behind. Just a man and a woman, and a bottle of cheap wine, stepping into the evening light. Some stains never wash clean. But if you're lucky, you can learn to paint over them.